in certain countries and so much more. So we also use them in power, energy. 80% of developing countries use whether it's manure for different energies and power, or use them for farming. We use them in biomedical advances and for companionship. So in this world, in this life that we live in, animals have a very important role in the life that we lead and the life that we live. So domestication of animals date back 4 centuries. Dogs are believed to be the most domesticated, one of the first and the most domesticated animal that come from an now extinct wolf in this DNA sequencing. The remainder of many animals follow, and the purpose of the domestication was for companionship, food, clothing, and religion and sports. So those are some of your main reasons why domestication of animals started. And so next week we will have a breeds too. In your syllabus, you'll switch between breeds and terms tests. So these are some of the terms that you will make sure you pay attention to, and also you will see them again in your quizzes and on your tests. So make sure you take heed and learn these terminologies. So animal science specialty. Animal science is comprised of a lot of different areas. And so these are just some of the main areas one could research or study or go into. I've seen in your chat that you all have a variety of interests, and a lot of them fall under some of these specialties. So genetics is basically the science and hereditary and the variation of inherited characteristics. And all these are in your book listed to the side. So this is just a recap, some of the definitions of what these specialties include. Nutrition, study of how organisms take in and use food or feed for body needs. The most important environmental factors is feed. Nutrition is the science that combines feed with feeding management and to bring about the economical production of livestock for health and long life to the animal companies. I'm sorry. Physiology is the study of physical and chemical processes of animals and any of the body systems and cells of the animal. Animal health, study and practice of maintaining animals as near to a constant of health as possible and feasible. Etiology, the study of animals in their natural surroundings. The focus is on instinctive or innate behavior, can be referred to as applied ethology. Meat science, science of handling, distributing, and marketing meat and meat products. Dairy product science, science of providing milk and milk products as food. And last but not least, biotechnology, a collective set of tools and applications of living organisms or parts of organisms to make or modify products, improve plants or animals, or develop microorganisms. So moving to the history of agricultural education, some of the I'm sorry, something going on my screen. All right, so moving on to the history. Some of the most important acts for agricultural or studies or agricultural science that has moved this field forward, and it has become what it is today was the Morrill Act of 1862, is a land grant college act passed in 1862 that set aside federal lands to create colleges to benefit the agricultural and mechanical arts, which is what schools such as Tuskegee is founded on, which is goes into the Land Grant College Act. That was to establish agricultural colleges, the concept of it, which are colleges that focus on practical agricultural science, military science, and engineering. Most of that, those STEM focused areas and research. And the Hatch Act was 1887 was established research funding for land grant colleges. And so that just funded the research and the land grant mission to help move these schools and the research forward. So globally, the demand for pigs, cattle, and poultry have increased in the recent years. They increase and will continue to increase in the future, especially as our population continues to grow. Some of our population projection numbers are pretty high, and so they're increasing. And so us as agriculturalists or animal science or producers, we have to keep up with those numbers and trends and make sure we're able to provide and feed the populations. So the global demand for meat on pigs, cattle, poultry, those demands are more higher than said sheep, goats, and buffalo and horses. Um, However, doing my research on goats, goats have become an increasing household meat, and the demand for those products have increased, and also goat farms have also increased here in the recent years. So your milk and eggs, those demands have increased, especially different variety, the goat milks. Like I said, the goat milks and alternative milks have also increased, but milk and eggs have increased to keep up with the demand in the population. So what are some of the drivers? Like I mentioned, the drivers of this increase is the people, the money aspect of going into agricultural research and more research for the healthier production or more sustainability of production for the keeping up with the demand and serving our people. And so the considerations that we have when we're in this field, we have to look at the research technology in the crop yield and biofuel. Those are some of the main areas in which we use animal science that we study within animal science so that we can keep up with the demand and keep up with what society, the demands that society is putting on our agricultural field. So sources of agricultural information, reliable sources, where you can get credible information on what's going on in the agricultural world. The Food and Agriculture Organization was established by the United Nations in 1945. And what they do is collect, evaluate, and disseminate the information of the world trends in the food and its populations. Also, the Council for Agricultural Science and Technology, known as CAST, it was formed in 1972 to identify food-related issues and interpret related research, scientific research. And so moving further, I'm trying to get through our PowerPoint, so I'm kind of moving a little fast. And we'll have questions, try to have time for questions at the end. So getting a little into the, sorry. So in your, in the first chapters, this is from figure 1 in chapter 1, 1.2. It has diagrams that break down the demands of the contribution of food sources to the human energy and the consumption and the human protein of consumption and how much each kind of the numbers are allocated. And so approximately 17% comes from animal products and 82% comes from plant products. Contribution of food sources for human protein consumptions, about 40% comes from animal products and 60% from animal plant products. And so even in the book, this is what it says, but some of those trends are constantly changing, especially with this big vegan or vegetarian or alternative food lifestyles. So some of the numbers can be up and down, and it is also goes along with the plant products that are higher in animal products for the for our people and for in the U.S. So per capita, the meat supply, selected countries and in the world. So the U.S. We supply quite a bit of meat in pounds compared to all of the other countries. So we are among Australia's. I think the number has changed. I should change that one. But U.S. is one of the top producers. We also do a lot of import. We produce quite a bit of the meat supply, but we also import a lot of meat from around the world. So make sure you
export a lot.
Say it one more time.
Do we export a lot since we have a lot of meat supply?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We the market is a little shaky now due to our administration, but we definitely do export a lot. We import a lot and export a lot. And so that's just how it's been. I think at one period, we were importing more than we were exporting, but I think those numbers are kind of balanced out. So the world livestock and poultry, so these are in the billions. So the chicken numbers are quite high. One of the top producers are chicken, which is pretty understandable. They don't cost as much to produce as some of the other larger animals, and so and the demand on chicken is higher, especially depending on where you are. Now the goats are pretty low here on this chart, but I think goats have also moved up with some recent research that I have done. The demand on goats within the U.S. have increased quite a bit, and goat products and goat farms have increased quite a bit. So I'll probably need to look into updating that number.
Is that just due to demand for it, or it's just?
I didn't understand you. I'm sorry.
I said, is the demand for gold just increasing, or more people coming over that are partaking in goat?
The demand is definitely increasing, and the different cultures, and with the U.S. being so diverse, the different cultures that are coming in, that usually in their country, that they're eating more goat meat. I think that it's coming into play in the U.S. And so we're looking and researching more goat meat, and it's said to be one of the healthier meat and alternative, whether it's goat milk comparison to dairy milk, and so a lot of those are expanding their views. And I'm trying to figure out why this is coming up on my computer. And so that demand, I think it's definitely changing, and so goat meat is becoming more of a demand, and people are seeking and looking for it. So that's a good thing.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So again, food production in the U.S. And so looking at these numbers in the billions. So milk is high. That's not a surprise. Broilers, which are your meat chickens, which kind of go along with the other, the previous slide, that chickens the production is so high, and one of the top producers for the meat, followed by your beef, pork, turkey, and eggs. I think those eggs numbers changed so that's as well. All right, so conditions favoring animal productions is that the population is expanding. And so that's why we do a lot of the things that we do, because population is expanding. We have to definitely keep up with the demand and keep people fed, and the nutrition within what we're producing high. And so the nutrient concentration and quality of animal foods are more efficient than plant products. And so that's why people favor more animal products over plant products just to consume, because the quality and the efficiency of what you get out of it and what your body needs is higher than plant. The need and demand for animals as power in developing nations will continue to increase and be a necessity. So in developing countries, which is totally different from here, where they're using a lot of animals to as their either power source for fuel, or using their byproducts, or just using the animals to work the land, which we have more machines and up on technology versus somebody else. And so these are why a lot of animals are produced and the demand is so high. The role of an animal plays in the role of the animal that plays in the fertility and conservation has been a long-standing practice that will continue, and new discoveries will continue to be made when it comes to using animals for beneficial conservation practices. And so my background is in fisheries and wildlife natural resources. And so that field alone is expanding, trying to use animal science or the production of animals to go hand in hand with conservation and using our natural resources in a sustainable way to make our production of animals more efficient. And so that is becoming a big field. If you guys are interested in the the wildlife aspect as well as the animal science aspect, that is an area where you can find work or research merging those two together. All right, so with what you've read so far and what we kind of covered today in class, can the Earth's land and water produce enough food for the growing population? I'm trying to get mine. All right, so what do you guys think?
I say no.
Say no, we can't. We're not producing enough.
Not just based off land and water, like that's already here. I think animals play a large part in making sure that a lot of people, everybody on Earth can eat. I don't think that if we weren't, I think if everybody was like vegans or vegetarians, I don't think that people could be fed efficiently.
Right. Okay.
I say no, only because of the overall wealth of the Earth's land itself and water production. Because how the ocean is having all of the garbage that we are participating into the just that amount of the word just slipped my mind, but basically, like, the carbon footprints, the ozone layer is really damaged, is being damaged by just how we use certain transportation and how often we use it, and it's not healthy for the actual earth itself. But since it's been so long since we've been using these things, the earth has really been damaging from that. So definitely not.
Very, very valid point. Those are some good points. So those are a lot of things that we need to take into consideration. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Okay.
So I said no, but I was told that like 50% of our produce comes from California alone. Is that true?
I'm not sure on 50%. That's a lot for the demand on California. I don't think the numbers are that high, but we do have a lot that comes from California.
So knowing that, like, if that's just one state out of all the states we have, isn't that like pretty good for, that type of argument?
But is it good with the conditions that California has going on with the fires and other natural disasters? Would
Yeah.
that, if we had 50% coming from there, is it sustainable for us?
Well, I'm just saying, because that's just one state. And, we have Texas, we have all these, well, I know Texas has a lot of bad droughts too. I mean, not
Right.
drought, hurricanes. We can't grow every crop, but we have a lot of land. I think a lot of people forget that.
There is land, but you have to think of arable land. Arable land.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of the land can't be used because there's a problem with the soil, and California actually produces 20% that the U.S. Uses, because you have to consider trade and the agriculture that is also imported from different countries, and we also ship out as well. So it's not just about feeding ourselves. Everybody works together.
Right.
Okay. Right. Thank you for that follow-up. I was just about to read. Dr. Bolden-Tiller said 13% comes from California. Remember, technology, we have already produced way more food today than we did 100 years ago. So those are things you definitely have to take into consideration, especially within our field. Go ahead.
Right. So I was just going to add, I saw in the chat box that a lot of people said no. So in actuality, it is estimated that we will be able to produce as much food as we need. From about 2010 to 2050, it's expected that we need to actually double the amount of food and agricultural commodities that we produce from 2010 to 2050 to produce enough food to feed the planet. And we are making gains with that. And although we do have to take into consideration arable land, we have to remember that we are utilizing technology to look at other ways for producing food. We think about, for instance, aeronautics and how we actually don't even need soil to produce plants, and hydroponics and things of that nature. So be mindful of that. And as agricultural scientists, that is what we do. We talked a little earlier today in class about the Land Grant Act that established the land grant institutions, and you should read a little bit more about that in your text. And for those of you who were in class in APSC 100, we talked about it there as well. The entire purpose for the establishment, or one of the primary purposes for establishing land grants, one was so that the common man could get educated. But when we went with the Hatch Act, it was to look at doing research, specifically research related to agriculture, and to foster agriculture. And that's why we are the #1 country in the world. It's not because we have the best military per se. It's really because we are the country that's able to produce the most food, and we have more excess food. And we were talking about imports and exports. We have the ability to really leverage the export of commodities for it's kind of like bartering for other gains, for other resources. So that's why we have lots of products from China, because we send them lots of food. And so in turn, we have great trade negotiations that results in us getting other products, if you would. So want to be really mindful of that. And that technology, that's where that research piece comes in, and thinking about how do we do things differently? How do we do them more efficiently? We think about, for instance, the number of or percentage of farmers in the country today. Today, we have around 1% of our total population of 330 something million people are producers. It's not because people don't want to farm, it's because people don't need to farm the way they used to in order to produce enough food. So the amount of food that an individual farmer actually produces is so much greater than what it used to be per person or per farmer, that we don't need as many farmers per capita. So, and that's as a result of tractors. When more labor was needed and you had to plow by hand versus utilizing tractors, and now we don't even need people to actually even drive those tractors. So we have to be mindful of that, and it's the technology that really is driving things, okay? So that we can feed the population. So, and then we think about even water, even though it is, we think about the law of plenty, where it's like we have so much water and there is a limit to it, especially fresh water, but we do have filtration systems and things like that. So we can take salt water, for instance, and make it utilizable for drinking, for farming, etc. Mm-hmm.
Is this where the 250 challenge comes from?
Right, so this is the 2050 challenge. So that 2050 challenge is knowing that our challenge by 2050 is to be able to double the amount of food that we produce from the time when 2050 challenge was first established around 2010 to 2050, because the amount of food that we need to produce is double. And not, we are having increases in populations, but it only accounts for a portion of that demand. The rest of that demand is a result of us needing to even grow more crops so that we can feed more animals, because there's more demand for animal product or animal protein in the diet. And Dr. Dokes was just talking a little bit about conditions that favor animal production. And one of those was the desire for folks to have meat products because it has more protein content than what you can get from all plant diet.
All right. So next quick question. We have some great comments in the chat box. So why do humans prefer animal products in their diet? You know, as us as a whole, or just you personally? Why do you prefer animal products? Because you're seeing a big wave now on a lot of people who are doing the vegan, vegetarian, and there's nothing wrong with that. So why is this a preference for animal products?
There's a myth that there's more protein in, well, I don't know if it's a myth, but in animals than it is in plants.
Not a myth, that's a fact.
Okay.
I was gonna say it's a fact.
I just heard it was, so I don't know.
You heard that from someone who knows nothing about nutrition.
Probably.
Facts.
Definitely a fact.
And as animal scientists and agriculturalists, irrespective of your preference, is you all will have to be the ambassadors to promote or to inform communities about these types of things. So it's not about what people heard, it's about what's factual. And it's important that you all know the facts. Please read your books.
Yes. You would, in this field, especially once you tell somebody what it is that you do or you're researching, you will have encounter some people who will challenge, you know, the research, challenge the facts. And so you have to be equipped and know the information to be able to, you know, either inform them or, you know, a lot of people want to go back and forth debate. And so I had several conversations with serious, you know, vegetarians and vegans. So.
Can I answer the question too?
Yes.
Okay, I would say that humans prefer animal products in their diet simply because of the trends as well, because urban farming and stuff like that is just now picking up for people to actually see farming. Like farming is not a big thing anymore simply because, like Dr. P said, it's not needed. So people aren't really seeing the benefits of farming and actually eating as many fruits and vegetables in their diet. But you have a lot of like fast food, like especially in minority communities, there's a lot of fast food restaurants, and they are just now getting with like Impossible Burger and stuff like that. They don't really have a lot of plant-based things in there. And also like grocery stores, the plant-based wave is just now hitting. So like that was really the main option, and people weren't really looking to have like fruits and vegetables like really into their diet. So I think it's just the trend of what people saw and what people were used to of like eating animals and stuff like that. But now that the trends are moving and people are seeing the actual agriculture and aspects of you know, fruits and vegetables, that the numbers will start changing. But also just because it's changing, you know, people's mindsets of that it is more protein, and they don't want, you know, plant-based food, they want the actual animals. So that is also a different way to look at it, why the trends are like that.
So one of the things I want you guys to be mindful of is you, as agricultural scientists, you have to look beyond the now and the here. And the now and the here for you is the past 60 years. So that's the now and the here from 60 years to today. We have to be reminded that when we look at the establishment of non-nomadic peoples, okay, prior to that, people ate plants and animals. Your body tends to crave, and that's what I'm going to call it, the things that are good for you. It's just kind of innate. Because meat has more protein, the body does kind of crave meat. And that's why just kind of what I'm going to call in the natural nomadic hundreds of years ago environment, folks really kind of ate plants and animals. And you can think about that when you think about, you really kind of still see it in the diet. When you think about some days you're just craving salt, some days you're just craving sugar, it's probably because your body actually needs salt and your body actually needs sugar for its physiological processes. So oftentimes that's not just a one-off thing, it's really something that your body needs. And what I would say is probably that what has happened over time when people began to work, what became a trend in actuality is fast food. Because prior to the establishment of fast food, women were home, they were not working. And so the fast food industry kind of came along and developed as women entered the workplace, and there wasn't anyone home to do that 3-hour cooking for dinner. And that just was what it was for the time. And so we see the evolution of that, though, as we become more industrialized as a society, because a lot of what we see with these food deserts, those are things that happen in the US because of our industrialization. When you go to other countries, that's not the case. And we're all the same people. So it has more to do with that industrialization of people not being in the home working and then having surplus income. Here in the United States, we have way more surplus income than in almost every country. And we have the opportunity and ability to actually spend more of our income toward food. And so this supports a lot of trendiness, if you would. So it's not so much that people just for no reason didn't kind of have access to plant products. It's not that they never did. It's not that it was a cultural thing here in the US, for instance. It's just the way our society evolved. And as we've become more conscientious in the last 20 to 25 years of understanding better the impacts of nutrition on health, we're kind of evolving back to have a more rounded diet. Because an all plant diet isn't great either. That's why we got these teeth.
I had a question. Is there, so does the meat like break down faster, or like the protein in the meat break down faster, or the plant protein in the plant, does it break faster?
No, it just doesn't have as much. If you get 1 ounce of plant and 1 ounce of meat, there's just more protein. Protein in the meat is all. That's all it is. So that's why meat has more protein. It has more protein per amount of mass, so to speak. You can get as much protein as you get from meat from plants. You just got to eat a whole lot of plants. That's why vegetarians are always hungry, and that's a real thing.
Yeah, graze.
No, I mean, if you know a vegetarian, like I'm a sexy size girl, and so like if I'm hungry, I always go find a vegetarian friend if I'm somewhere, because I know they got snacks, and it's because they're literally always hungry, because the plant products don't have enough protein or as much protein, so it doesn't stick to them so much. So the cells in the body are saying, no, I need more protein and other molecules so that I can do the normal daily physiological processes.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question that refers back to the first question that we were asked. So would mass production of food be also because of genetically modified food in plants?
Yes. So to keep up, a lot of it, to keep up with the production or the increase in the demand, a lot of it is going to be genetically modified. Just because you have these different, I'm drawing a blank, but just having these different ways of being able to create or make them more resistant or tolerant. They are genetically modified to meet the demand, and so they're able to, I guess, survive and thrive in certain areas or not their natural state. So yes, you will have to keep up with it. Yes.
And do remember that genetic modification is something that happens naturally. It's called evolution. It's just that with science and understanding how that happens naturally, we're able to leverage that information and utilize technology to more rapidly do some of these evolutions or changing of traits, and then to also target them. Okay, to also target changes based on our understanding of science and how things work regularly. We have 1 minute, and looks like we have at least 1 or 2 more slides, so we're going to move on, but definitely want to keep this conversation going, and we'll have some more assignments where we talk about this a little bit more. Next slide.
Definitely. Thank you guys for participating. So again, because conditions of favoring animal products, so flexibility of animals in converting feed to food, economic, social, and institutional forces that favor animal husbandry and animal products. So the need for animals for mental health and personal satisfaction. So these are some of the favoring reasons why animal products are favorable. So to recap for week 2, and I'll stick around just for a hot second after class if anybody have any further questions. So just a reminder slide, make sure that you have access to Blackboard. We're still getting a few emails that refer those to IT. I can't help you. I can't even get in the system.